a team of people. So I love the fact that even, again, at the end of every lesson, at the end of every module, it's like, report to the team. What did you find? What did you uncover? And that is just so cool to see the objectives ironed out and presented in that way for a job.
Yeah, and that's pretty much what it comes down to. You think about it when you're joining and you're trying to get your foot in the door. You want to be able to jump in there and say like, hey, here's the stuff that I can actually do. I can take this off your plate right away, and I can demonstrate that. And that's really the focus of this first course is here's some really introductory level things. We tie it directly to the methodology that is defined by OWASP, right? The Web Security Testing Guidelines. So you have something that you can defer or refer directly to on their site and say, hey, here's the things that we are testing and that we're trying to uncover related to your app. And then for the senior folks or the more experienced folks on your team, you're relieving them of having to go through those things, and they can focus on the more impactful or the more advanced things, and you're contributing right away. So my focus here was, let's break this up into a way that you can learn this initial set of techniques and concepts and whatnot, and then you can actually go in and say like, hey, I can find these things, I know the process, and I can feel effective, and then I can learn some additional stuff while I'm on the job and while I'm continuing to engage in these projects and the tests and whatever else that you end up doing.
May I ask, even in sort of your architecture and sculpting of, hey, what this initial course entails, and I know you've got a big vision for, hey, even more of these, is there a quick crash course or snapshot you could give me of what web app pen testing junior analysts in this kind of first one of three in the trio covers, and then even the ideas, or at least what you're scheming up for, hey, what is to come for, if I could say, web app 2 or web app 3, right?
Yeah, I broke it down into basically three things. So if you look at the OWASP, the Web Security Testing Guidelines, there's, I forget the exact number, 85 or so different modules that break things down into different components, things like authentication testing or error messages or open source intelligence, injection, those types of things. And so what I did is I went through all of those modules and I took out the ones that are really easy and approachable, and that comprises course number 1. So you're going to get a little bit of an introduction to things like session management, how authentication works, how configurations work, how you can gather information about an application, testing for the way that the application handles input and errors, and essentially looking at the configuration, the overall health of the application and the supporting architecture. So course 1, you're going to start looking into all of those things. You're going to get basically an intro to lots of different components of the web application security and how web apps work. And then course 2 and course 3, you start expanding upon that. So now it's like, instead of identifying, how the sessions are configured, you can look for ways to abuse those or to hijack those through different types of vulnerabilities in opportunities that may present themselves in the apps. So this really just kind of builds upon itself in each iteration. And then by the end of it, you're really understanding things not only from the ground up, but in an approachable way where it's not, trying to understand really, multi-chain types of attacks and everything. Like, that's really hard to just jump into and be like, oh, I understand that. That's what I realized, is that those things take time to wrap your head around. And really, if you drop down to those foundational elements, it's easy to build up from there.
One thing I know, again, another incredible an aspect of this in the training in the path for our web app pen testing is how you had prepared the range or the lab or the exercise. I kind of tried to tease and tee it up for you a little bit, but you have a crosswind systems. Is that the right capture?
That is, yeah. That was the second part of this. Idea was, hey, this is great. This is a cool way to present this. How do we make it seem at least semi-realistic? And I really wanted to focus on creating like an engagement out of it, right? We wanted to send the students or anybody that wants to try this out after an actual application for a fictitious company that we created that has deployed applications, and they want to get an idea of where their security lies related to those apps. So we registered the domain, we created all the apps, we integrated all of the features and the modules into essentially the labs and the tasks that you end up doing. And that was actually one of the things that fell together that made all this possible, is that after I had spoken with Don about the idea for this course and this series, I got approached from some students at Northeastern out in Boston, and they said, "Hey, we're doing our capstone, and the goal for this capstone is we need to reach out to a company and see if we can help them in some capacity, right? Whatever you need to do." And so I had 4 students. And they built all the labs. I basically broke down all of the concepts that we're trying to do, and their capstone was building the lab environment and implementing all of these findings, all the flags, all the different misconfigurations and vulnerabilities, and then presenting that as their capstone project for the school. So I wanted to make sure that they got a shout out for that. We have Tyler, Charlie, Muzamil, and Adit. They were so fun to work with. They had just a great the great experience working with them. They're coming in basically with no knowledge of web app security, really, like just the stuff that they learned. And now I'm telling them, hey, not only do you need to understand those concepts, but now you need to implement them in such a way that we can send somebody else after those to identify and replicate those. So they had a great time with it. I really enjoyed working with them, and that's really what made all this possible.
Man, it's just so cool. Like, I love it because, look, just hacking training, right? JHT and everything that we're up to. Ultimately, at the end of the day, hey, we're helping students. And whether, okay, you're in an age bracket where you're thinking either college or university as students, but anyone going through their own life experience and their timeline, that you can learn at any point, and anyone could be learning. And like, look, anyone that's jumping into all the training that we have up here is still our students. So it's just the coolest like harmony in my mind of, hey, we got to really build this thing with students front and center and all throughout, and really anyone that wants to grab the course and dive in is learning from still stuff that, hey, other students got to help collaborate on and chip away at and just make an awesome thing.
Yep.
I just think it's too cool, Mike.
That's really what made it possible, honestly. The building of the labs and trying to figure out how to do all this stuff. I did software engineering in the past, right? I still have some skills related to that, but I know how to break the things now. I don't know exactly how to implement them in the breakable way. So working with the students that had some of that core knowledge just really made it possible. I don't know that I would have been able to pull it off the same way without them.
Well, Mike, are there any other directions in, I don't know, sort of talking head, kind of like just discussing kind of things, anything else we could sprinkle in? Or if you're up for it, maybe do we have any show and tell, any demos or fireworks to set off?
I mean, I'm happy to show off a couple of the applications, not everything related to the course, but the main 2 applications that you're going to be focused on when you're going through the course, should you decide to do so. Like, that would be great. I highly encourage, going through all the training there. But if you want to just play around with that stuff, these things are live, they're accessible, and it's just something out there for the community. So I'm happy to show a little bit of that and kind of talk through the approach here and a couple of just the little things that really caught me off guard when we were building this.
Well, if you want to dive in, I think I've got your screen share. Should I bring it up now if you're ready for it?
Sure.
Cool. Let's do it. I'll bring up the show. All righty.
There we go. So here we have our main Crosswind Systems application. And yes, this was built by those students with the help of, Claude and some other AI based things for the design elements, right? I didn't want to task the students with figuring out how to render CSS and do all those weird things. So it's more focused on the components within that. So that resulted in some really kind of hilarious artifacts that came out here. But what we have is this company called Crosswind Systems. They're a digital infrastructure company. They do a lot of different things. They provide support for, quote unquote, Fortune 500 companies. So we have the site that's basically a listing of what their main focus is, what their solutions that they offer are. And the thing that really caught me off here is that they help with Fortune 500 companies. So they have 500 plus of the Fortune 500, which is, basically all of them. That was a good one that came out of that. We have some, just some placeholder types of things, but at the end of the day, this looks like a pretty standard web application that you might come across online. It has, just a listing of their services and things. So this is one of the targets that students will be able to interact with and poke at and do some research on to get an idea of like where those vulnerabilities may lie. It's just at the straight presentation here, it's just a pretty average site. The second site that we're going to be looking at mainly is a store site. So this is more of that e-commerce side of things. Crosswinds, they decide, hey, we want to offer some things for sale, some basic technology things for their customers and for their clients and things. So we have a web app store here. Again, pretty straightforward, pretty, standard type of e-commerce store. You can go through, you can, create an account, you can register an account. There's lots of little features here that you would come across really often in your web application testing journey, right? The types of things that you're going to come across and the types of things that you will encounter when you're doing those. So what we created is a few different sites here, tried to tie it all together with some types of branding and color schemes, and really make it as realistic as we could be while still hiding a whole bunch of things. And one of the things that I wanted to mention is that as you go through the course, there is going to be some little Easter eggs to uncover, right? My history is coming from a place of capture the flag events and competitions and those types of things. So in some of these cases, like there wasn't an easy way to demonstrate, like, how can we show that we solve this problem or we identified this issue. So what you will come across from time to time is some different things that they're identified as flags in either the response or in somewhere in the application. So those are little things that you can go and find and understand that, hey, this relates to a specific module. So there's all of that to uncover, and not all of it is covered in the course, right? We ended up with a lot more flags and a lot more things that those 4 students created than what I actually could include within the course itself. So even after you finish it, you can keep poking around and find some things that just help you, reinforce those skills and some of the things that you're doing as you go through this learning process. But even if you don't go through that, you can still understand some of those concepts, some of those things by going after the store, taking a look at it, and this identifying some of those vulnerabilities. Like I said, you're not going to see all the big, SQL injections and those types of things. We don't have that stuff built in, but that will come later with course, 2 and course 3. We're going to have to expand out on what these services look like.
May I banter with you on one little thing? Because I know I'm a huge proponent. I'm a huge advocate. I'm an absolute believer in capture the flag. And I'm so glad that you're feeling like, hey, look, this is where a lot of us got our upbringing. This is how we cut our teeth on this stuff and how we got sharp in some cybersecurity aspects. But I know there's a occasional chit chat where people kind of whine and say, you know what? CTFs just aren't realistic. And that really pains me. That, like, I struggle with that because, sure, I think, okay, you fall down to a cutesy like steganography challenge. It's just a guessy puzzle leap of faith. Those aren't the best. But I really do think that CTFs or capture the flag is realistic. Not that, okay, you're finding some string, a hexadecimal and a token or a key, but that's just so representative for PII that you could find or see it leaked online, or the proof and the demonstration, the POC and the proof of concept. Oh no, look, I literally demonstrated remote code execution. I dumped files with local file inclusion. Like that, I always just struggle, and I'm trying my best to, I don't know, bring out a little stake in the ground for like, no, CTFs are realistic when they're done as great and as good as they can be. Is that fair to say? Do you agree?
Yeah, I would say that there is valid criticisms of CTFs in cases where you're really trying to contrive something to demonstrate a point. There's still a lot of value there if you're looking to say like, hey, I want you to understand this one concept and I'm going to develop a challenge around that so you can demonstrate that you're able to do that. But in other cases, it does just become like, hey, this is really just a result of being something that you have to guess creatively, or, it requires something kind of like intangible that isn't a great it's not a great experience. So it's just a result of the fact that CTF challenges, as somebody that's designed them and done that for a while, they're really hard to tie into like the exact thing that you're trying to do. And sometimes you miss, and that's okay too. But I do think when they're done right and when they're done in the right context, that they can be extremely valuable. And to really lock into, hey, I know that I did this right. And your example of like RCE or showing code execution, right? How do you demonstrate that you did that? You know, if you throw a little thing on there, it's like, hey, go grab this thing and just submit it to show that you did it. Like that's much easier than saying like, oh, well, you know, I have to explain this whole process through it. You're able to just say like, oh, by submitting this, that shows that I solved these things in the order that they were supposed to, you know, happen. So it's really, I think that there's valid criticisms, but there's also a lot of benefits as well.
Agreed. I think maybe just a John opinion. Look, CTFs can be realistic. They are when you do them right. So
I see a question coming in here related to the juice shop. I did want to jump on that if that's okay.
totally.
So there is that application out there called the OWASP Juice Shop. Great application put out by OWASP as it's titled, I guess. And that has a lot of different types of vulnerabilities built in. It's got a lot of opportunity to try things out and test it. And I think it's a great training tool. This is something that would be kind of similar in structure to the Juice Shop, except that it's more trying to represent itself as semi-realistic and not just a training tool individually. So I would say that if you're going through this and you're trying to learn some of these things, the Juice Shop, as well as some other things like I think there's BBox and or BWAP, something like that, and a few others that are out there, are really good ways to try and understand those concepts and to test on them or train on them and understand those a little bit better. So they're all great resources. I'm not going to discourage like the use or the benefits that those things provide. you're going to be able to submit the flags through the quizzes and the report to the team sections, right? So you're able to enter them in there to identify that you found them. Outside of that, the flags that you get are more just like little artifacts that you can uncover, and then you can tie it back into like, what does this relate to, right? A lot of the flags are indicative of the module that it associates with, so that you can cross-reference it and say like, oh, this is something related to the cookies, or this is something related to the configuration, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I think this kind of plays along well with a real theme that I think has been growing with a lot of our just hacking training material. Even with some of the incredible stuff that Anton has put out instead of his constructing defense direction, the greatest thing is, hey, we still want to make this opportunity available to you, super accessible, like the free lab, the free range, and this, of course, Crosswind Systems is a public site, so that anyone, you could just dive in. But if you wanted to the real value with the handholding, with the guidance, with the input and the validation as to what you've uncovered and what you found, and the machines and virtual machines that let you dive into this, that is going to be coupled with the course and the material and the training itself. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, you can do it outside of the course, like you mentioned. We do provide that the VM in there that's all configured, ready to go. You're able to use all the tools that are available there. But in the overview, I do provide some walkthroughs on how to install some of these tools on your own in your own environment to basically follow through in your in the area that you're comfortable, right? If that's one of the things that I've always had challenges with in the past is in instances where you're given an environment, but it doesn't really match how you're going to operate. I wanted to make sure that you had options either way to either, hey, give me something that I can follow with, or tell me how I can do it so I can start building up my own process, building up my own tool set, and then understanding that in my own system.
Heck yeah. Anything more to show on your side, Mike? Or I guess we're getting to maybe the 45-minute mark. If there is a little bit more show and tell, we could totally dive in. Or what else is on your mind?
Oh, no, I think that's a lot of it for, I think all the things that I want to show on the apps themselves, I do encourage everybody to go jump in. And I did want to say too, like for upcoming events and all that, I'm going to be doing a little bit of a short workshop at HackSpaceCon next week, right? So anybody that is interested in chatting about web app security, I will be there on behalf of both Maltech and Red Team Village. We'll be doing some training, some demonstrations. We have some CTFs running right now. Lots of things on the agenda coming up over the next few months here.
Well, thank you for being a participant in the community. You know, I think it's, hey, everybody collects a check, everybody sits and does their day job, but I think it's even another real passion that just shows and exudes so well, where you're like, you're there, you're with it, you're in, you're part of the community, you're at the conferences, you're putting on these events, these workshops, these hands-on trainings. So again, could not be happier to be hanging out with you, and just so thankful for all the great work that you do.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I encourage everybody else to be part of that. I think that's one of the big gaps that we're seeing right now in the educational space, is that there's a lot of great foundational knowledge, a lot of great theoretical knowledge, but we don't have enough practitioners that are able to provide their time, their skills, and their resources to help supplement, what the schools are trying to do. They're willing and ready to accept that assistance and really get some more hands-on to better prepare those students. And if more of us were able to step up and do that in different capacities, I think it would benefit everybody that's trying to get into this industry much better. Because the big gap right now is coming through and being able to talk about, hey,